Welcome to this explainer. I want you to imagine, just for a second, that you're standing in a dense forest about 40,000 years ago. It is incredibly cold. You know, the kind of biting chill that just seeps right into your joints. You're hungry, your feet ache, and somewhere behind you, a group of stocky, broad-faced beings is watching you from the tree line. Now, they aren't wolves and they aren't bears. They're people. Well, sort of. And here's the really wild thing. They were actually here first, way before your kind ever showed up with your fancy tools, campfire stories, and aggressive expansion across the globe. But today, those beings are completely gone. Every single one of them. And you? You made it. You're part of the species that survived. We are, quite literally, the last humans standing. So what does this all mean? It brings us to a massive central mystery. How exactly did we become the last human standing? I mean, asking why Homo sapiens survived while literally every other human species vanished is quite possibly one of the most important questions in the entire history of life on Earth. Did we systematically wipe everyone else out? Did we just get incredibly lucky? Or was there some kind of fatal flaw baked right into their biology? Okay, let's dive into this. To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this mystery, we have to grasp a pretty jarring number. If we rewind 500,000 years ago, there were up to 6 or 7 distinct human species alive simultaneously. No, seriously, think about that for a second. 6 or 7 different kinds of humans walking the earth at the exact same time. They were out there building fires, raising children, and just trying to survive, often completely unaware that the others even existed. Section 1. The crowded family tree. To solve our prehistoric cold case, we first need to identify the victims. For the vast majority of our prehistory, Earth was absolutely not a one-species operation. It was a crowded, messy, and wonderfully diverse family tree. Roughly 300,000 years ago, you had us, Homo sapiens, emerging over in Africa. But you also had Neanderthals thriving in the freezing, brutal environments of Europe. Over in Eastern Asia, the Denisovans were ranging far and wide. Then there's Homo floresiensis in Indonesia. These were tiny humans with brains about the size of a chimpanzee's. And down in South Africa, you had Homo naledi, a species with an orange-sized brain that, incredibly, seems to have navigated deep, pitch-black cave systems just to bury their dead. Now, what's really interesting about this is how incredibly physically diverse our relatives actually were. And it's absolutely crucial to understand that these were not primitive, shuffling animals just acting on pure instinct. Not at all. They exhibited incredibly advanced behaviors. They controlled fire, they hunted massive megafauna, and they even created jewelry out of eagle talons, which, let's be honest, is an incredibly bold choice of material. But most importantly, they actually cared for each other. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, scientists found the remains of a Neanderthal who had survived for years with a withered arm, severe arthritis, and a damaged eye socket. He lived to an old age for one simple reason. His community actively cared for him. They were thinking, feeling people doing their absolute best in a harsh world. Section 2. The Extinction Mystery. So, if they were so capable, what on earth happened to them? Well, our prime suspect is Homo sapiens. There is a very, very awkward correlation between our global expansion and the sudden disappearance of absolutely everyone else. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds. Around 70,000 years ago, our ancestors began a massive push out of Africa. Notice what happens next. 50,000 years ago, modern humans reach Southeast Asia. And boom, Homo floresiensis disappears. 40,000 years ago, we arrive in Europe in large numbers, and the Neanderthals vanish. The timeline of their extinction eerily matches the timeline of our arrival, almost down to the millennia. But hold on a second, we really shouldn't picture these cinematic scenes of prehistoric armies hunting down Neanderthals. The reality is actually explained by an ecological rule called competitive exclusion. It basically states that when two closely related species occupy the exact same ecological niche, one of them is inevitably going to win. We didn't necessarily hunt them down, we simply squeezed these existing populations out of the best territories, pushing them into marginal environments until they just slowly and quietly faded away. Let's look at why we actually won that competition. A really stark contrast emerges between our capabilities and theirs. Homo sapiens had long-range projectile weapons like atlatls and eventually bows. This was a real game changer because it allowed us to kill massive megafauna from a safe distance. Other populations mostly relied on close-range, highly dangerous hunting tactics. Plus, we had massive trade networks that spanned hundreds of kilometers, while they were mostly stuck in smaller, localized ranges. Our ability to safely acquire food and share complex information rapidly across vast distances was a genuinely transformative advantage. Section 3. A messy genetic merger. But here is the massive twist in our cold case. The extinction wasn't just a clean replacement, and this brilliantly illustrates what actually happened. If you are of European or Asian descent, somewhere between 1% and 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. We didn't just compete with them, we interbred with them. We had children together. This means that, technically speaking, Neanderthals aren't entirely extinct. Pieces of them literally survive inside you right now, affecting everything from your immune system to how your body processes cold. And the exact same thing goes for the Denisovans. This is a ghost species known almost entirely from a single pinky bone and a few teeth found in a cave. Yet, modern Tibetans carry a specific Denisovan gene variant that helps their bodies process oxygen at extreme high altitudes. It's just an incredible detail. Genetic gifts from vanished species are still out there doing their jobs, keeping modern humans alive today. Section 4. The perfect storm. To truly understand why we're the last ones standing, we have to look at the broader environment, because a compounding environmental nightmare was unfolding at the exact same time. The period between 70,000 and 12,000 years ago was absolutely brutal. We are talking about extreme climate shifts, advancing ice ages, and sea levels dropping dramatically. Then you had the Toba supervolcano eruption around 74,000 years ago, which caused a devastating volcanic winter. In fact, modern genetic evidence suggests this bottleneck almost wiped us out too, dropping the entire Homo sapiens population to maybe just a few thousand individuals globally. Add in the potential that our species carried novel pathogens out of Africa that other humans had absolutely no immunity to, and you have an impossible survival scenario for already stressed populations. And the environment didn't just cause extinctions. It created entirely new evolutionary rules. Take island biogeography, for example. When large animals get stuck on isolated islands with limited resources, they literally shrink over generations. This explains the bizarre, wonderful case of Homo floresiensis, the hobbits of Indonesia. They evolved to be barely a meter tall, yet they hunted pygmy elephants using stone tools, despite having brains the size of a chimp's. It just goes to show how wildly adaptable the human family was before the end came. Section 5. The cognitive edge. So if the environment was hostile to everyone, what was our ultimate advantage? Well, it really comes down to a cognitive revolution that occurred around 50 to 70,000 years ago. We developed recursive language, which is the ability to put sentences within sentences and discuss hypotheticals. So instead of just pointing and grunting at a mammoth, we could say something like, hey, if we wait by the river where they cross at midday, we can ambush the young ones. That shared language allowed for shared mythology, binding thousands of strangers together in large group coordination that no other species could match. So the crucial point is this: the knowledge we could accumulate, share, and build on gave us an edge that widened with every single generation. It was exactly like compound interest, but for survival. We weren't physically superior. Actually, scratch that, we were arguably weaker than Neanderthals. We just possessed an incredibly powerful, neurologically networked way of organizing information. We didn't just react to the world around us, we predicted it, we modeled it, and ultimately we reshaped it. Now, it's really vital to view this impartially. Extinction wasn't driven by some malicious, intentional genocide on our part. While there was certainly small-scale violent conflict when our territories overlapped, the ultimate demise of other human species was just the ordinary, tragic mechanics of expansion. It was the slow strangulation of isolated groups running headfirst into something entirely unprecedented, a hyper-connected, fast-adapting competitor that simply left no room for them. Section 6. Our humbling legacy. As we conclude this investigation, it's time to look at what this all means for us today. The hard truth is, we were not inevitable. As the quote goes, we were one of several options, a draft, one experiment among many. We are simply the experiment that succeeded. We got the timing right, we got the tools right, and we built the networks right at the exact right moment in a world that harshly punished anyone who fell even slightly behind. Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. For hundreds of thousands of years, the Neanderthals had fire, they had community, and they looked out at their world feeling completely confident that they would always be there. And then they weren't. If they felt so incredibly secure in their permanence, how secure is ours? Thanks for joining me as we explored this mystery. Keep questioning and keep exploring.